Welcome back, everybody, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki, and this is my podcast where I talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment. And today, it's a big one, 28 years in the making. Well, not really. It's episode 75, where we're talking 28 years later. I'm very excited to chat about this movie right now. It has been the talk of the town this week. I hope you are all doing well. What a week it has been. It has been stinking hot in Ontario, and my God, the day this is coming out, Monday, it is going to be 45 degrees Celsius. Like, what do you can't do anything outside when it's that hot, but that's why they invented air conditioning. Anyway, a couple things to plug before we get into the episode today. This Friday or possibly Saturday, the 27th/28th, new YouTube video coming out saying goodbye to the DCEU and hello to the DCU. We're like 2.5 weeks away from Superman, I guess. I was like, oh, you know what? This month's YouTube video for June, let's make a fun little goodbye video and what I want from the DC universe under DC Studios. So also, of course, as I say every week, timestamps below. I am going to be very careful. Like, they shot on iPhone and stuff for this movie. I'm not even going to talk about all of the kind of special things that come from what they shot on or the technological aspects, because I think there is so much that you should just go into this movie without knowing. But of course, there will be a non-spoiler and a spoiler section. We have a huge news section to get through where I promise it's not all DC news this week like it happened to be last week. Again, sorry about that. But tons of news to get through, non-spoilers, spoilers, then what else I watched. I have tons of movies and a couple of seasons of a television show to talk about, so let's do it. Let's jump into the news. All right, our first piece of news. Pixar has unveiled a new Venice set cattail called Gato. So it's like a new hand-painted looking animation style that's basically going to be Disney Pixar's Flow, is how I would explain it, that it's going to be this cat going through life, wondering if it's actually used its lives correctly, since, you know, cats have 9 lives, of course, but I am a little bit tired of Disney Pixar sequels. Like, they just announced Incredibles 3, but it's not even Brad Bird directing, so at that point, what's the point? You know, why are we even doing it if it's not Brad Bird, and what's he done to not deserve to come back to at least finish his own trilogy? But I think this looks really cool. I'm seeing Elio on Monday, which of course is a Disney film, a new Disney film, and I would rather Pixar really swings for the fences with maybe cheaper original animated projects rather than these $300 million Elio projects where they're rewriting things on the fly and constantly scrapping stuff. It just seems like Pixar is a bit of a mess, and we talked about it a couple weeks ago, these ballooning budgets on these animated films. Like, how is that possible that a $300 million animated movie exists? And just today, I was on Twitter this morning and someone posted the original trailer for Elio, and it is like pretty different than the new ones or like what's playing in theaters apparently. So I'm seeing it Monday night. That'll be Thursday's review next week on my socials if you want to check that out. I'm actually seeing a double feature Monday night with a fan screening of F1, the movie, before it comes out on Thursday, which is really cool. And then Elio is technically out right now. I'm recording this Friday, June 20th at 3:32 p.m. is the current local time, Eastern Standard Time. Elio Monday, F1 Monday. F1 is next week's episode as well. But look, they didn't really show anything for the Pixar film, but Deadline says Pixar is returning to Italy for a new original film, Gatto, by Enrico Casarosa, about a cat living in the iconic lagoon city of Venice. The CGI powerhouse announced the upcoming movie during a presentation at the Annecy International Animation Film Festival on Friday, as well as on its Instagram account. So the drama follows a black cat named Nero who lives in Venice. Oh my God, there's so many typos in this. Who lives in Venice. It's in Venice. Indebted to a feline mob boss, he is forced to forge an unexpected friendship that may finally lead him to his purpose. Currently in production, the movie scheduled to hit cinemas in 2027. So Casarosa also directed Luca, a 2022 film that I think a lot of people liked. Luca was the one that had very positive reviews, right? Yeah. So I think that could be cool. And I like more original children's films. Like, we don't just need live action remakes, which we're going to talk about How to Train Your Dragon today because I did see it this week and I have thoughts, but you know, I think it's just better to give kids these original stories and ideas that they don't have to be like original ideas. Of course, there's going to be thematic things that all carry over throughout different stories. But like, don't they deserve good entertainment? Like, movies have just gotten lazy for children. I'm talking to you, a Minecraft movie. I hated you, and it's lazy. These executives think children don't care and they don't deserve like effort and time put into their movies, but like, treat these stories seriously and give kids a great film. Like, Finding Nemo rocked when I was a kid. The Incredibles rocked. Monsters Inc. rocked. Toy Story 1, 2, and 3 are amazing. 4, couldn't care less, but I don't know. I'm excited for maybe Pixar can get it together. Who knows? They've lost so much money, Disney Pixar, in the last few years, especially since COVID, with like, you know, the death of theaters and the popularity growth of Disney Plus, and that they're willing to just debut things on Disney Plus, I guess. But I don't know, like, movie theaters are expensive, but there are children's ticket prices. I just think it's not only on the executives. I feel bad just for blaming, you know, creators and stuff like that, oh, you guys don't care about your movies, because there needs to be a little bit more price reduction for children to be able to go to the theaters with their parents, because I do feel bad for families that are trying to go and see an original story like Gato. It's going to cost you, I mean, one ticket here is like $15 or less. I would say $15 or less if you're going in standard. So think of if you have 5 or 6 family members who are going with a friend's family or whatever, you know, it's expensive to take you and your family out for a movie. And I do think it's, you know, especially in hard times right now financially for everyone, like, it's a luxury that few and fewer people are able to afford, and it's really sad. So that's why, you know, streaming, you pay price of one movie ticket almost, and then you can watch as many things as you want. Or also, kids just aren't interested, I guess, in going in public sometimes to go to a movie theater. So it's a whole mess of things. What a tangent that was. But either way, I think there are promising elements of Pixar's upcoming projects. Like Toy Story 5, they actually revealed that the villain is going to be like an iPad or a kid's tablet. I think that's a genius idea. I was very mean to Pixar when they announced Toy Story 5, but I think I will allow them to come back and try and defeat iPads and iPad kids and iPad parents. Let's take them down. It's like Ethan Hunt in The Entity. We need Toy Story. We need Buzz and Woody and the gang to take down iPads. All right, we won't spend too long on this next story. It's kind of 2 stories almost, but it's pretty much confirmed this week by Deadline, comicbook.com, Hollywood Reporter, that Jake Schreier, the director of Thunderbolts, is taking the X-Men reboot at Marvel Studios. I am very happy about this. I think he nails the team dynamics in a more mature and like mental health or personality life experience element. To me, the very good directors that do team dynamics well, obviously James Gunn with the Guardian movies within the MCU, but then Jake Schreier just did a very good job making a team that are all losers or are all suffering from something. And the X-Men, there always needs to be, you know, discussions of social outcasting and of social justice. That is what the X-Men are all about. They were created during the civil rights movement to represent people of color and people that are discriminated against, people that think the X-Men can't be woke or aren't woke. Like, you guys literally don't understand what these characters are. That's who they're supposed to represent, and that's what the mutants are. He did a really good job in Thunderbolts showing a fragile and flawed team, because I do think the X-Men, they can't be a perfect superhero team. They need to be massively flawed people, whether it's their egos, whether it's, I don't know, mental health wise. Of course, there needs to be a fracturing in the group, and they need to be really fighting for themselves the whole time and fighting like a larger threat. There needs to be those little conflicts in there, and I think Thunderbolts did that really well, with all of them feeling like losers, feeling like outcasts, feeling like they had been put on the back burner by society, whether it is, you know, Walker and his father issues, that he's a bad dad and he feels washed up because he was supposed to be Cap. Yelena not feeling fulfilled in life and literally getting depression from work and feeling like she could be doing more. Jake Schreier and the writers of that film just did a really good job teeing him up to move into another film, and I do think the CGI and the action stuff was a good warm-up. And we've talked about this before, and I think we even talked about it in the Thunderbolts episode or the episode after, when the rumors came out that, oh, Marvel is very happy with Jake Schreier and they would love him to come back, and they've already talked about other projects, and it looks like X-Men might be the one offered to them. And I was very on board with it from the beginning, and just the more I've sat with it, the better of an idea I think it is. I just think he's a really phenomenal choice. Bo DeMeo, the X-Men 97 guy, was ranting on Twitter this week now that he's unemployed and doing nothing. He was just saying, oh my god, what a terrible choice, and Thunderbolts wasn't even that good and all this stuff. Like, why would they pick him? And it's like, I actually think he's a very good choice. And I've only seen positive reactions online to his appointment, which that brings me to our next story. Marvel Studios has actually added a fourth possible film to their 2028 slate. There's a few theories of what this could be. Is it a completely new, like, original project? So I don't know. Is it a new hero that they want to introduce? Or some people are theorizing that the next Avengers movies are actually going to be split into 3. So we're going to get Doomsday next year. Then we'll get Secret Wars Part 1. And then Secret Wars Part 2 would be the third movie the year after in 2028. I could maybe see that because Secret Wars is just a giant story to tell. It might be a little bit clunky and messy to do that in one movie. But at the same time, like, they did the Infinity Saga, or they did Infinity War in one movie and then Endgame in another movie. Other people are saying it might just be the X-Men movie now that Jake Schreier is, like, confirmed to be the director. Maybe they officially set a date. I thought they had already set a date, but maybe they've just pushed it so they can work on a script even though they have a script. But I think maybe Jake Schreier, once he comes on board, they're probably going to do some script revisions and figure out, like, what he likes, what he doesn't like, and what they can kind of work out and the kinks like that. So the fact that it's a fourth film that year, I don't like that. I think they should be doing, I don't know, should they do 2 movies per year maximum? Maybe, but at the same time, it's so much money in it to them that they can only do so much, and they want to do like 3 or 4 per year. If I'm Marvel, I'm going to be advocating for 2 movies a year and 1 TV show or 2 TV shows. I think that's good. You have 4 things a year that you can do. You can do 1 ground level movie, 1 bigger movie, and that way you're not stressing out any visual effects creators. And at what point do they just, reboot it all? As for who I want to be in the X-Men, Sadie Sink, it's not confirmed who she is, but the only actor I know 100% I want to be in this X-Men movie, Patrick Schwarzenegger, I think he should be Cyclops. I saw someone fan cast him on Twitter a couple months ago after The White Lotus wrapped up, and I've been set on that since. I was like, yeah, he's perfect for that. He's egotistical, he's a bit of an asshole, but also he could be like a leader for the group. He also just looks like Cyclops. Like, he looks like every Scott Summers in every comic and every photo ever. Like, he looks like a young James Marsden almost. So yeah, I would be bringing in Patrick Schwarzenegger. He's around the right age. And if Sadie Sink isn't Jean Grey and they have a little bit closer of an age gap with Jean Grey and him, I think it could really work. I don't know who their Jean Grey is going to be, but I think Sadie Sink might just be a little too young for that. I feel like she is playing someone else. But X-Men movie, Jake Schreier, it could be the 2028 release. We'll have to see what happens. Our next story, the only DC thing I will talk about this week, okay, other than a couple movies and what else I watched, but DC Studios horror movie Clayface to star Tom Rhys-Harries. So Tom Rhys-Harries is a Welsh actor who is relatively unknown stateside, and he's going to star as the Batman villain known for his ability to shapeshift. So the casting ends a search that focused on young British actors for the project, and according to The Hollywood Reporter, there was Jack O'Connell, Tom Blythe, and George McKay. All 3 of those would have been just such a fantastic choice, but I kind of like that they went with a bit of a less known actor in the States. I feel like the other 3, most people in the States would be able to recognize them, but this is honestly a very interesting choice, and I'm going to talk about next week in my video how I want them to keep casting in the DCU, and I think what they're doing with this casting is really good. It is inspired by the Batman the Animated Series episode, which is awesome. I loved those. It's like Heart of Clay or Heart of Face of Clay or whatever it is, but that's Mike Flanagan's script, which James Gunn confirmed this week. That's what they're using. Like, it's still Mike Flanagan's script. They're not changing it. They love the script so much, and that's why it's all going ahead. So I think that's a really good choice, and I'm very excited for this movie. I feel like, I don't know, we're just getting closer to more projects moving at DC Studios, especially live action films. Like, apparently the Batman 2's script is going to be coming to DC Studios on Monday. They're filming in January once Robert Pattinson is done with Dune 3, which, speaking of Dune 3, some casting news came out this week that shook the internet. Deadline are reporting that Nakoa Wolf Momoa and Ida Brooke join Dune 3 as the twin children of Paul Atreides. One of those names will be very recognizable to you because Nakoa Wolf Momoa is Jason Momoa's son. I am very interested why they would cast his son. Is he just a very good actor, or are they doing something with the story that they want him to look like his dad? I don't think so, but I have to say Ida Brooke looks exactly like a young Zendaya, and that is fantastic casting. I'm excited for both of these. I don't know how much experience acting either of them have, but I was excited for this. It looks like they are merging Children of Dune and Dune Messiah, kind of, which I like the idea of that. Maybe, actually, I don't think Dune Messiah is too short. short to adapt in, but I think Denis Villeneuve wants to get the ball rolling on the next one because it's not as much action in Dune Messiah. So who knows what the next film would be, because they have said that they plan on doing a fourth movie, but it's exciting to get at least casting announcements for the new film. I know Robert Pattinson was technically announced, but they haven't said who he's playing, and I want to know more. They're shooting this summer or this fall or whatever it is. I think they start in August, so there's got to be news coming out. Is it even called Dune Messiah? Is it going to be called Dune 3 because they're merging the two movies? I don't know, but I hope he calls it Dune Messiah. Hans Zimmer said they're already working on the score because Denis Villeneuve has like fully revealed the story to him, so very exciting for me. I think that's all the news I have. Like I said, timestamps below if you don't want any spoilers for 28 years later, because there's honestly some stuff in the trailer that is shown, but there's not the context of it, and it's very different in the movie. But let's jump into 28 years later. 28 Years Later is a 2025 horror thriller film coming in at an hour and 55 minutes. I thought it was even less than that, but great runtime. We'll talk about that today. It is, of course, directed by Danny Boyle, who directed the original film 28 Days Later, written by Alex Garland, who did Civil War, recently did Warfare. He's doing an Elden Ring film. Budget of $60 million, which is fantastic. That is such a good budget for this film, and honestly, I could not believe it. Reviews are currently very positive. 7.3 on IMDb, 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, with a 68% audience score, which surprises me. 3.7 on Letterboxd with a 4-star mode rating. 78% on Metacritic. The synopsis for 28 Years Later. 28 years since the Rage virus escaped a biological weapons laboratory. Now, still in a ruthlessly enforced quarantine, some have found ways to exist amidst the infected. One such group lives on a small island connected to the mainland by a single, heavily defended causeway. When one member departs on a mission into the dark heart of the mainland, he discovers secrets, wonders, and horrors that have mutated not only the infected, but other survivors as well. Ooh. The film stars Alfie Williams as Spike, Aaron Taylor-Johnson as Jamie, Jodie Comer as Isla, Ray Fiennes as Dr. Ian Kelson, Jack O'Connell as Sir Jimmy Crystal, Christopher Fulford as Sam, Stella Gonet as Jenny, Chi Lewis Perry as the Alpha/Samson, and Edvin Riding as Eric Sundqvist. All right, initial thoughts on 28 Years Later. I only watched the first two the night before I saw this, and we'll talk about those and what else I watched, but I have to say, this was pretty solid, even if I wasn't fully sold. I think there are elements where it just loses itself a little bit, but I had so much fun watching this. Like, it was an absolute ball. There is so much of this that is just breakneck filmmaking. Even if there was a girl 2 seats over from me that kept asking her boyfriend questions like, is she gonna shoot him? Is he gonna die? Out loud, very loud, and I was genuinely shocked and just wanted to say shut the fuck up. But look, I still had a lot of fun in the theaters, and I really want to talk about the performances. Let's talk about Jodie Comer as Isla. I don't think she's put a bad performance in, really. Maybe she's in the movie Free Guy, right? I don't know. Maybe I'll excuse her for that, but she is genuinely astonishing in this. A fantastic mother, but she also has a thing about her character that she's doing so well. I don't want to spoil because I can't remember if they actually reveal that in the trailer, this thing about her, but she is so great in this, and every scene she's in, she really stole the show for me. Like, you would think Aaron Taylor-Johnson would be the big sell of this movie, but for me, it was Jodie Comer and Alfie Williams as Spike. But let's talk about Aaron Taylor-Johnson, because I think he's very good in this movie. Not in it as much as I thought he would be. I thought he was going to be in the entire thing. He really only has about 30 minutes of screen time. So I was very surprised by how quickly the story moves on from him and focuses more on Spike and his mother. And I really liked that. Aaron Taylor-Johnson, this is probably one of his better performances. I wasn't huge on him, obviously, in Craven, but I wasn't massive on him in Nosferatu. I get that he's going for this like snobby, aristocraty guy that's kind of an asshole, but to me it felt a little tonally at odds with everyone else's performance, like Nicholas Hoult, like Lily Rose Depp. So I think he's good in that movie, but he's not great. Whereas in here, I was like, oh, I feel like he's bringing it, and he is this dad. I won't tell you what kind of dad he is, but he is a dad, and him and his son have such an interesting relationship, as well as him and his wife and him in the village. Like, it's a lot of really meaty stuff to chew on, no pun intended, as it's a zombie movie. But Alfie Williams as Spike, I believe this might be his acting debut. He only has one movie to his name on Letterboxd, and if it is his acting debut, he is phenomenal in this. Like, you would think he's a seasoned veteran. He is so good. He's 12 years old in the story, and kind of the idea is, it's not anything that I'm giving away, that he's going on his first hunt with his father at the start of the movie, and he just plays the fear so well, and then having to like turn into this hero to help others. And I really loved what they do with his character, and his performance just really, really blew me away, and I was shocked how good he is. And Danny Boyle was talking about, child actors, how the game has really been stepped up since he did 28 Days Later. He said Harry Potter is to blame for that. The fact that the trio in that movie are just remarkable from such a young age, and that level or that caliber is available in children actors, that you can trust them to handle that kind of material. Whereas, you watch the girl in the first 28 Days Later movie, she's absolutely atrocious, but we'll get to that movie in a little bit. Ray Fiennes as Dr. Ian Kelson is amazing in this movie. Like, I think Ray Fiennes, I don't know, dude, he just doesn't put in bad performances. He's Lego Batman Alfred, amazing in Conclave, Voldemort, of course. Like, I mean, there's so much good stuff that Ray Fiennes has done in his career. He's one of the best actors. I love that Conan O'Brien recently, when he was talking about Oscars, said Ray Fiennes is easily the best actor in that room, and he deserved to win it. But he is fantastic in this. Again, maybe not as involved as I thought he was going to be. Like Aaron Taylor Johnson, I thought their parts of the story would maybe be a little bit more throughout, but he really comes into it in the second half. Same with Jack O'Connell as Jimmy Crystal, who we just saw Jack O'Connell in Sinners. I loved him in that. He was supposed to be Clayface, or he was in the running rather to be Clayface, and he has a very interesting role in this, which is interesting. Interesting. I think his role and his portion of the film are where things are going to be maybe make or break for people. But I want to move into the story, because I really like the story progression they've taken from 28 Days Later to 28 Weeks Later to 28 Years Later. I'm shocked we never got 28 Months Later, but missed opportunity. Anyways, I think they move the world in a really good direction. That yes, the infection went to Europe at the end of the second film, but they've been able to pull it back to just be in the UK, which I don't really understand. That if they could tame it everywhere else in the world, you would think maybe the world would just team up to like take over the UK or something like that. But I do like the way they have moved the story, even if there's elements that don't really make sense within the whole world. Like, the rest of the world is living regularly now, and I like that it's only the UK that is in quarantine, and the rest of the world is watching it, trying to contain this virus. They progress the infected really well in this movie, that they're kind of a little smarter, or now they're all trying to survive on the mainland, and they're like just eating whoever, and they're all naked and super skinny and running around and stuff. I like all of that. The legacy sequel aspect is not as prevalent as you would think in this film. I thought every turn of the movie, like, oh, they're going to be revealed to be this person's son. Oh, they're going to be revealed to be that person from the other movie. I was surprised how restrained they really were, and I think that's something you don't see a lot in the legacy sequels nowadays. And a movie that came to mind right now when I was saying that was Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I thought that movie was really good as well at being restrained in the legacy sequel aspect, that in that movie, Caesar is just this legend that kind of is almost a religious thing, and his image is being taken by the apes into meaning this other thing, whereas in this movie there's really none of that. It's very stripped back, and I like how we're just getting a new community, a new group of people to focus on. The only thing that's progressed is the world and the infection, and I think it's just really smart writing from Alex Garland to not try and really milk it and make it this big franchise like the first two movies, or try to really rip off the first two movies. I mean, let's talk about Danny Boyle's directing. There's really still that 2000s, early 2000s British, like early cheesy filmmaking that he had in the first film, which I really love here, that the performances are kind of a little bit melodramatic at times, or a little bit over the top, and the way the dialogue's delivered sometimes is a little bit almost like corny, like drama, and I love that there is this like big swing in all of these emotions. And Danny Boyle's just such a fascinating director. I know people have kind of been shitting on him this week because, oh, well, he's a hack because he did Yesterday. Luckily, I never watched Yesterday, so he's still a really good director to me. This movie is way closer to 28 Days Later than it is to 28 Weeks Later. While still progressing in his filmmaking techniques, he uses a lot of like color blending and these different like infrared or nighttime things. There's the northern lights and these very interesting visuals that I don't want to really give away too much of the visuals, because if you don't see them in the trailer, which because they don't show them, and I'll save them for the spoiler section, then I think it's really fun to go in and see this stuff and you're like, oh my god, I did not think that was possible in movies. And I had that thought a few times, like, oh, I didn't really think you're allowed to do that, or I thought that was like maybe not, I don't know, not something that a filmmaker would think of doing, but it feels really fresh and inventive. Even if I wasn't in love with some of the story beats or some of the tones that they went for, I think just watching this methodologically, whatever, the delivery system of this film and the package that it comes in is some of the best filmmaking we've probably had. I don't know, could you say in the last, definitely in the 2020s, but I don't know, maybe in the last 20 years, because there are elements in this movie where I genuinely, like, my jaw dropped, and in the theater there was like a little bit of a gasp of like, holy shit, that was so cool. And I've seen a lot of that sentiment online, and I thought maybe, oh, have I just not seen this kind of stuff before? But what I'm gathering really from other people as well is like, you don't see this kind of filmmaking normally, and they've really gone for something special here. Honestly, not just the directing, but the writing of the film. Like, it is a little bit tonally messy at times. Like, I feel like they're kind of bouncing around a little bit too much of where the focus is going, but I like how they're setting up a trilogy here, and I think they're laying the foundations really well. Again, actually, like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes last year, you have this franchise that, you know, was pretty popular a while ago, or is a popular franchise in general. Like, I think, you know, a lot of film fans at least love the 28 Days Later film, and 28 Weeks Later is, you know, an okay sequel, I would say, but people, specifically fans of this franchise, have wanted something to come back to. The Apes franchise, the first movie, you know, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes of this new trilogy from Wes Ball, it is a little bit too much at times, or maybe a little messy at times, but I think it's laying a lot of really good foundations that we're going to reap the reward of that in the next two movies, because there are going to be two more movies coming. As for the writing and the script, I think it is just a really good story that feels like it needed to be told, and I like that it's not coming back and just kind of doing the exact same thing again, like a lot of legacy sequels tend to do, that when they're coming back, it's kind of just, oh, it's A New Hope again. Okay, well, you know, we've seen it. That's kind of boring. I don't need to see that again. I like that this legacy sequel, could you even call it a legacy sequel? I don't know. The only returning character really is the virus, I guess. So it's not even a legacy sequel. I don't even know why I'm calling it that. I think it's just the world's kind of almost calling it a legacy sequel, but I think it's just a straight up sequel coming since 2007 was the last one. So it's been plenty of time since the previous one, and I feel like this was a really good time to come back after COVID, and it's a fun zombie genre to play with after so many years. And the script does some of the best world building I've probably seen this year on film. Like, I think Mickey 17, Sinners, and this movie 28 Years Later are the three best movies with world building for me this year. This movie, I just really felt like the opening 20 minutes, we learn so much so fast, and it never feels like I'm getting lost and like, wait, so whatever happened to that? Like, it has a classic text thing explaining what's happened in the last 28 years since the rage virus broke out, and then we're immediately into our story. We understand the community dynamics, the rules of the mainland, how all these things operate, and it just does a really good job easing you into it while really showing how fast the world has gone on without the UK. And I loved that, and I felt like the continuation and evolution of the world is so strong here. And it's only an hour 55 minutes, but it feels like it breezes by. I was really shocked at how well paced this movie is, that every scene just feels like it's really building towards something. And like, there's this stretch in the last 20 minutes where there's such an emotional crescendo, I guess you could call it, that I was really getting moved, and it really feels like we're swelling into something magnificent. I thought the first 40 minutes were super intense, and it did like take a little bit of a hit of like, wait, so what's the story going to be now? But I think it really does build it up really nicely again into this other thing that I really, really enjoyed. The only part that lost me, and I guess we'll talk some negatives. I don't know, little nitpicks of, or maybe why I didn't rate it higher, etc., all that stuff. I think the final scene, I understand what they're going for, but for me, it was just a step too far in how tonally mismatched it is with the rest of the film. And I think it's going to be the make or break point for a lot of people. I understand what they're referencing, like pop culture wise, but for me, I still didn't enjoy it. And I was like, I don't know if that's the direction we should have gone in, but I'm still excited for a third movie. So at least it didn't dampen my wishes. But I think my first little nitpick is that final scene. Okay, this isn't a nitpick. This is just a comment, but this is a really nude movie because all of the infected are nude. But there's this concept of like an alpha, that the infected have like an alpha leader kind of, and it's this big hulking infected guy. And he is just swinging dong the entire movie. I've seen so many funny memes on Twitter about how nude this movie is, and like that every time Samson's on screen and you see that ginormous dong, definitely a prosthetic. If not, good for him. Kind of shocking how nude this movie was. But as for the action, let's talk about that because I think they have really progressed it in such a cool way. I think 28 weeks later maybe has better action than 28 days later, and now 28 years later has the best action of the trilogy because there are brutal elements in here that I was genuinely shocked we just saw that on screen, of things being torn out, people being shredded, or just the kills are also very brutal in how they're shot, and the most brutal of the series by far. I was very, very shocked. Someone online called it like Mortal Kombat, I think, and definitely there's Mortal Kombat vibes to be had here. They really do step it up in a zombie movie. They show you more and more action that I loved, but the cinematography and the use of iPhones and that they're shooting on iPhones never felt gimmicky, never felt like it was pushing back its own limitations. I think it's so great and so inventive. This series is so interesting how it looks visually. Not 28 weeks later. I think that movie is just shot like any other movie was in 2007, but 28 days later and 28 years later, both of the Danny Boyle ones are two of the most visually fascinating movies I've maybe ever seen in my life. I don't know. I can't think of another movie that looked like this one, and like there is just this other like textured look, and the night scenes look really good, and I don't even know how to explain it, but there is just this like digital iPhone element to it. And yes, it's shot on iPhones, but they have like thousands of dollars in upgrades. It's very different, but I have to say the visuals did very much work for me in this film. Apart from the CGI did feel a little bit sketchy in a couple parts. Like there's this one element where there's a herd of animals running, and I was like, that does not look good. So there are maybe one or two moments maximum. Otherwise, all of the visual effects, all of the prosthetics, all the makeup, all the kills, everything else CGI wise looked really good to me and looked really finished. It was just two kind of basic scenes that I was surprised how bad they looked in comparison to the rest of the movie. I was like, where did this come from? And it just really didn't work for me. And also maybe the movie feels a little incomplete to me in the end, but at the same time, it is setting up a whole trilogy. But I did feel like I would have maybe just liked 5 more minutes with our character that we're more focused on, or at least I thought they were going somewhere really interesting, and then something happens to them and I was like, again, that final scene, I think it made it feel a little bit incomplete or unfocused to me. But something I always ask when there's like a trilogy or another movie that comes out years later, could you watch this without seeing the others? I genuinely think you could watch this movie without having seen or even heard of the previous 2 movies. It does a really good job just standing on its own 2 feet, very separate from the previous 2. It explains exactly what happened in the previous 2 movies, that there was an infection, it broke out, it spread to Europe contained it, now it's only stuck in the UK. That's all you need to know going into this. There's no elements of this story that I was like, oh, nobody's gonna get that, or like, wow, what a reference. So honestly, if you're on the fence about going to see this movie because you haven't seen the other 2, just go watch it anyways, and then go watch the previous 2 after. If you really do want to have the full enjoyment of this movie, I do think you should watch the previous 2 just to have that thematic or like enjoyment element of it, that like, oh, I'm a fan of this series like I am now. But as for future plans, like, and this is why it's such a good time to get into this franchise, Nia DaCosta is directing the sequel, which is called 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, and then there is going to be 3rd film because they want to make this a complete trilogy, which I really like. It's interesting that they're ending with 5 movies. I feel like, are there a lot of franchises that stop at 5 movies? I don't know. Sound off if there are. But I do really like the themes that that they're exploring in this film, like masculinity, the inevitability of death, militarism, and kind of the pipeline to the army, and how we set up our people to be soldiers, or our young men to be soldiers. So there's a lot that they're really diving into, and I thought they explored the different themes just the right amount. But let's get into 2 stars and a wish, okay? 2 stars and a wish. If you don't know, when we were in high school, we used to do presentations, and the audience of the presentation would give the presenter 2 stars, 2 things they liked, and a wish, maybe something they could have done better. Star number 1, just some revolutionary cinematography, like genuinely some mind-blowing, game-changing filmmaking here that I think others may try to adapt or will be inspirations for people in film schools for the next few years. Star number 2, fantastic tension and acting and action. There's just so much building and building and building and bursts or outrages and stuff like that, and the acting just goes so well into that to have these really tender emotional moments, as well as the big swings that happen in this film that I really loved. My wish, maybe a little more closure, or kind of, I don't know, just the final scene. I think I need to sit on the final scene a little bit longer. Maybe I'll love it in a couple weeks, but overall, 28 years later, I think they mostly landed the plane. I enjoyed it, and I'm definitely a huge fan of the series now. I love apocalypse sci-fi like Mad Max or this. This is very fun. It's heartbreaking. It's well acted. It's so well made. I gave it 3.5 out of 5. I don't think it's perfect, but I thought it was like a very solid film at the movies, and honestly, I look forward to watching it again someday. But let's jump into spoilers. All right, spoilers for 28 years later. Skip ahead to the what else I watched section if you don't want the movie spoiled for you. So Europe was obviously infected, as I mentioned in the non-spoiler section, but now NATO and like the United Nations are actually circling around the UK and like guarding to make sure no infected or nobody can get off the island because it is quarantined. So I really like that this movie, they have a group of international guards that get stranded and actually get stuck on the mainland. That's where we meet Eric, who interacts with Jodie Comer's character Isla and her son Spike. I really like that stuff, and I think it's really interesting that like the world is guarding the UK to quarantine them, and hopefully all the infected starve and all the non-infected can just like, you know, push through. I don't really understand why the rest of the world, like I said in non-spoilers, wouldn't just step in and try to, like in 28 Weeks Later, but maybe do it better and don't have a selfish dad and a selfish mom. You know, like I just think they should have stepped in, and you either kill all the infected and then you help all the survivors to rebuild society, because it's been 28 years and the rest of the world has like gone on completely. Like there's cell phones, there's internet, there's regular life. But it's just, I don't know, I just feel like the world building is really good in the progression of the world, but I feel like there's things that in real life, if we ever got a zombie apocalypse, I feel like the international community would have tried to help a little bit more. I really like that Eric shows Spike a cell phone and he's like, what is that? And then he talks about, oh, the internet and package delivery drivers, and Spike has no clue what any of these words mean. He's like, what's a package? What's a delivery driver? What's the internet? And Eric shows him his girlfriend on his phone, and Spike is like, what's wrong with her? Because she has lip fillers and Botox. That got the biggest laugh in my theater. It was so funny. I thought that was just amazing. And Spike says, you know, there's a girl like that in our village who, when she eats shellfish, her lips swell up. One of the funniest things in the world that I've seen this year. I love that little jab at Botox and lip fillers. But let's talk about Aaron Taylor Johnson as a sloppy, washed up dad who's cheating on his wife with cancer. He knows she's sick. He refuses to take her to a doctor on the mainland or look for Ray Fiennes' character, who is a doctor. He's also cheating on his sick wife and just waiting for her to die so he can theoretically be with Rose, I think is her name. I can't remember if her name is even said in the film, but I like how quickly Spike turns on his own father, and it really does dive into like toxic relationships with your parents and absent parents, how Spike, you know, he goes out on that first mission with his dad and he kind of fails miserably because he gets scared, misses a bunch of his shots. They get stranded a little bit for the night, and it's really a fight to get back to the island because the Alpha's chasing them. But Aaron Taylor Johnson tells everyone, oh, he shot the Alpha, like he handled all of these infected and he was a beast. And it's like, you know, that pride that parents have where they'll lie about their kids and they want to boast about them because then it makes them look successful. And that's how Aaron Taylor Johnson is as a father. And it's really interesting that Spike sees his his dad cheating on his mom and instantly, pulls a knife on him when he comes home and tells him to get lost and tells his dad to go away. And then he takes his own mother to go see the doctor, and he is now the man of his family, or the caretaker of the family, giving her that care that she needs. And it's just, I think there's a lot of very interesting family themes and elements that work in this film and really do set up the emotional stakes and the heart of this movie that pay off at the end, other than that final scene, which I'll talk about. But the alphas of the groups, I think I didn't talk about this in non-spoilers, but the alphas are like a little bit more sentient, or they are a little bit more aware of what's happening. And in fact, maybe all of the infected are a little bit more sentient or have a little bit more consciousness to them. Like there's, I guess we'll talk about it now, but there is a pregnant infected who Isla helps deliver the baby, and the baby is not infected. So is the virus dying out? Is the virus not carried on through genes? I think it's like this ritual that the infected will, give birth to their babies or whatever when they reproduce, and then they bite the infected baby, or they bite the non-infected baby. How does that work? I maybe wish we got a little bit more clarity of like how this all works, if Dr. What's-His-Face knew about it, Dr. Kelson. But it was interesting that they are getting a little bit more sentient and a little bit more intelligent, like they can actually think, they can communicate a little bit more, and Isla delivering the baby with her. Then Eric gets scared and kills the mother. Samson kills Eric, rips his head out, and you see his spine, and he uses it as well. It's crazy. Some of the craziest action. That was like one of the best scenes in the film. But I wonder what it means for the virus itself, the fact that it's not carried on through pregnancy, the fact that it was just a regular baby that lives on at the end, and how is that going to work? But then the alpha, I guess that was the alpha's child, and that's why the alpha is so adamant on getting that child back, or chasing down Spike and Dr. Kelson. But I want to jump into the legacy characters, or the legacy elements and lack of legacy characters now, because the whole time Isla is talking about her dad, how she used to go on these trips with her dad, she constantly calls Spike her father because she thinks he is, because she's confused and the cancer has spread to her brain. So it's interesting how they're almost playing that her dad is going to be this legacy character, and I was wondering the entire time, who is her dad going to be? Is she going to be revealed to be the girl from the first movie, 28 Days Later, that was living with Jim at the end of the film? But that goes nowhere, and I thought, oh, okay, that was kind of an opportunity missed to make her dad someone, or was it? Or actually, I kind of like that they didn't do that. That's all fascinating to me. And then let's talk about Ray Fiennes' character now, because I loved his character. So his whole thing is that he takes care of the Bone Temple. I guess that's, what it's called, and maybe the second film is going to be more about him. But Jamie, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, talks about that they saw him when they were younger, and he had like bodies lined up on a lawn all in like unique rows, and he's just burning all of the bodies. Not necessarily infected people, I don't think, or is he killing infected people? I didn't catch who are all of these dead people that he's burning. Are they sick people that are coming to him and he says, I can't help you, so if you want to not die a sad, slow death, I can kill you right now? Are they all dead people that he's found and he's burning, and he's making his big stack of skulls? But what I like about his character is he is just a very genuinely nice guy. He is a little kooky. He has the iodine rubbed all over his body, but what's interesting is how he deals with Spike's mother, that he tells Spike she has cancer. Spike gets angry and says there's nothing you can do, and I thought that was the best section of the film. I loved them meeting him and having that whole Bone Temple sequence where the mom dies and he has to kill her, and he burns her, gives Spike the skull, and Spike puts it at the top of that pyramid. I thought that was a very gorgeous moment that worked really well, and I felt like that was a really good payoff of Spike, coming to terms with the inevitability of death. And it really hit me in the theater of like, Jesus Christ, imagine in the middle of this big infectious thing for the last 28 years, and your mom just gets cancer and she doesn't even die of the infection. She dies of cancer. She dies of another disease. And it really broke my heart. I was like, there's no winning in such a cruel and just awful world that they have. Everything sucks about their life, and they've been fighting for scraps for years. And then this happens to Spike after his dad is revealed to be a scumbag. A very touching moment that I thought was handled so well, and I thought Alex Garland's writing was fantastic there, and Danny Boyle's directing was mesmerizing. One of my favorite sections of a movie this year. So how does the film end? Well, I really love the ending parts of it, at least, where Spike sends the baby back fully healthy in a shopping basket with a note saying, I'll come back when I'm ready, and he goes to the mainland to be a survivor. So I guess the new films, the next two films, are going to focus on him maybe living and taking over the Bone Temple with Dr. Kelson, or him just living on the mainland and in general, either way, I like this fact that he is going on his own. But the final scene, Jimmy, the blonde boy from the start of the film that runs away with his cross, he runs his own Jimmy cult that they have where they're going around killing infected, and he's based on like Jimmy Seville or the Power Rangers, and the whole final scene is shot like a Power Ranger special from the 90s and early 2000s, and I thought it was hilarious, but it left a sour taste in my mouth that I didn't like at the end of the film, and I just need a little bit more time to sit with that, I think, to figure out, do I like it? But I think that final scene is really going to be make or break for people, and I wasn't a big fan of Jack O'Connell's role at the end of the film, but a couple questions I have going into the next two movies. Who is this community or masked cult leader that we saw at the end of the film? Is it maybe going to be the daughter from the first movie? Is it going to be the daughter from the second movie? Who is this woman that's in the trailers, but also she has like that really scary like purge mask with the arrow in the forehead that we never actually see who that is? I'm curious who that is. And then the other question I have is, where did Samson the Alpha go? He chases after the baby, chases after Dr. Kelson. They give him the morphine and then Spike runs off, so I guess he's still running about. Is that it? But look, either way, I thought this was a pretty solid movie. I think there's a lot of really good twists and turns, and it hits some really amazing emotional climaxes that I wasn't expecting from this film, and it really is a bittersweet movie. Like, you're very happy that Spike has gained his independence and can move away from his father, and the baby survives, but it's so sad that his mother dies, but it's this like sweet moment where we are all touched by this inevitability of death, and it's this remember death, or remember we all have to die, memora amoris or whatever, remember we have to love. There's this use of Latin in the film that's really beautiful, but I think that's all I have for spoilers. Really a very solid movie. 3.5 out of 5. It wasn't my favorite of the year, but it's definitely up there. Let's move into what else I watched. All right, what else I watched? Well, I watched 6 movies and 2 TV shows. Well, the same TV show, but 2 different seasons. I started a book today, a Hercules comic book, which I will post a video about on Sunday, but let's talk TV first. Survivor, Season 4 Marquesas, the Boston Rob debut season, iconic season. I actually did like most of the cast, but it's a very religious season. Like, it's just every episode, there's like 40 different references to, oh, praise God, praise Jesus, we're only here from the Lord's power, and it's so jarring to watch as a current day Survivor fan, where there's like no mention of religion or like any personal beliefs. Other than New Era, they had Omer, who is a Muslim, but like, you know, they don't really talk about religion in the New Era, so it's just very fascinating to go back and watch this, where it's so just hardcore, God bless, God this, God that, and it's kind of crazy. Vesepia is an interesting winner. I don't know, she probably played socially really well, is why she won, and people liked her, and it was an okay season. I think I maybe liked 2 the most so far of seasons 1 to 5, because right now I'm watching season 5 Thailand, my least favorite by far. I hate the cast so much. The winner, Brian, is such a strange guy. He's also an asshole, but so far I'm loving rewatching them all. It's so much fun seeing it from the start. Some of the challenges are so stupid. Some of the contestants are such assholes that it's like not even fun. Let's move into my movies, where I have 6 movies to talk about. Starting with Blue Beetle. This was one of the DC movies that I hadn't seen from the previous regime, actually, and it only came out a couple years ago. It came out 2023. I just never got to the theaters to see it because it came out in like August when I got back from vacation and I was working on my dissertation or something like that. So I was like, I don't have time to watch this. Honestly, it's not awful. I feel like there's a lot of heart to it, but my biggest issue with it is it's just trying to be so many other things, and it's not very original or like fleshed out. It felt like it's trying to embody the soul of a lot of these other comic book movies and the whole family aspect of it. It's like we just had 2 family movies with the Shazam thing, and the fact that his family are also fighting in this. I'm like, it's kind of the same shtick and or gimmick, so it's a little bit boring. About 20 minutes in, I was like, oh, this is just going to be a bunch of other movies put into one. So 2.5 stars. Then I watched Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the final DCEU movie that I needed to watch before I shot my video, because there were a couple that I was missing. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is like way clumsier, way worse. That's all I can say. It's just a way worse version of the first movie, which, like, the first movie, I think it is pretty bad writing, but the visual elements are just so much fun. Like the costumes, the colors, the world building, everything about it is just very fun that I'm like, okay, I can kind of forgive it. Whereas Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the visuals aren't that interesting. The story is just kind of boring. And I think the performance performances are really bad. Like Jason Momoa is really bad in that movie. The whole fact that they had the Amber Heard thing happen and they just kind of lock her in a box away. Oh, she's sick. And she's just not in half the movie. I'm like, very clever. It's just a very fitting end to the DCEU that we have this like dying final breaths of a movie before we say goodbye and move on to a new universe that honestly, there's times where you're watching Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom that it's just struggling to keep going. Like it's so bland and just unspecial. It's just so gray and emotionally dull that I just was not interested. It's trying to be the first movie again. It's kind of the same issues I had with Shazam, Fury of the Gods, the second one, where it's just trying so hard to recapture that lightning in a bottle, but it just fails really miserably. And it's like, I feel like we had something special once, but we kind of lost the formula and we went in the wrong directions. So I'm happy Jason Momoa is moving on to be Lobo because that's the role he originally wanted. But Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, goodbye. Still good costumes, I will say that, but it's 2 stars. Then I went to the theaters this week and I saw yet another double feature. You know I love my double features. I saw Life of Chuck and How to Train Your Dragon. I saw How to Train Your Dragon in IMAX, but let's start with Life of Chuck. I made a little video for my socials on Thursday, which you can go check out, and I had no clue. This is a Stephen King adaptation. Like, where did that come from? Really interesting, but it does have a very Stephen King spooky kind of spiritual element to it, and I know the only other Stephen King adaptation that's not horror that I know of was Stand By Me, but this is another one, and I really liked it. Look, I love cheesy, corny, hopeful, inspirational movies. About Time, it was one of my Friday fives that I posted on my socials. I love About Time because it's so uplifting in the end. We've grown so cynical as a society, and that's why I think some people, like when the Superman trailer came out, were like, oh my god, it looks so cheesy and corny, and it's like, people don't like happy movies anymore, or people just being positive. Maybe because it makes them feel worse about their own life, that they can't be positive, and it's almost a reality check or a contrast to the world that's going on around us, and I totally get why people should be cynical. I'm very cynical myself as well, but Life of Chuck has such an interesting delivery method going backwards in his life, and I like that the first chapter is not really focused on him either. The ending just gave me such a nice feeling and such a nice sort of, the world might be falling apart, but you have to enjoy every moment until you get there, and you only have so much time on this planet, so why not make the most of it? If you're looking for an uplifting, a corny movie that will make you feel better about life, go see Life of Chuck because it was such an enjoyable experience. I gave it 4 stars. However, crashing back down to earth, we have How to Train Your Dragon, which I can understand why people would like it. It's literally frame for frame the same movie as the animated movie, which I don't even think the animated one's that great. I think it's like enjoyable, but it's not the best animated movie. I think the story's a little bit clunky and rushed at times. It's not one of my favorite animated movies, and the live action version is just a worse version of that, and I really did tear into it on Letterboxd because it pissed me off. I finished the movie and I was just genuinely pissed off. Like, okay, you made it live action. You proved your point that you can take these animated movies and do it in live action, but why? You're just basically saying animated films are not real movies. I can't believe I'm saying this, but credit to Lilo and Stitch that they were at least trying new things in live action and they were changing the story for better or for worse. Whereas this, there are story changes, but they're hardly noticeable, and most of them are just, I don't know, love interest stuff that it's a little more obvious in the love interest elements, and it's just kind of boring seeing a live action version that's more gray, more dull. The physicality of the animated film you can't do in live action because it just looks too fake, and it doesn't look real. Like, humans don't move like that in real life. It's only cartoonish that you can move like that, or it's only in animated projects that you can move like that. I think the kid that's playing Hiccup, Mason Thames, is good. I think he actually is doing probably as good as he can with the material, but the fact that they're not trying to bring it to live action in a more realistic way, and they're really keeping all of the script moments. The only person I thought was maybe better than the animated version was the Gerard Butler's character. I kind of felt like he was a more interesting father in the live action one, and I feel like he also just had more fun in the live action version because he got to wear this big costume and stuff like that. That was the only version where I was like, okay, I kind of like this one better, but other than that, it was just a complete disaster. The CGI is great, obviously, but that's the only thing it has going for it. But it did feel like a stage play to me. The acting was just so, I don't know, over the top and melodramatic and cartoony that I was just like, no one talks like this and it's not believable in live action. So I gave it 2.5 stars. I wouldn't recommend it. I just don't really find it that fascinating, and I would just go watch the animated version instead because it's way better. Then my final two movies, 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. Let's start with 28 Days Later. Never seen them before, and I was very happy to jump into this franchise because 28 Days Later is one of those movies that you see the opening part where he's walking around London, posted on TikTok, posted on Twitter like every day, all the time, because it is such like an iconic thing. And I swear every video that someone posts, it's them saying how they did that, how they got him to walk around by himself in London, and I still can't remember. So I need to do some Googling because while watching 28 Days Later, just like 2001 A Space Odyssey last week or the week before, there were so many moments in my mind where I'm like, how are they doing this? And I kind of had that with 28 Years Later as well, of like, this is so amazing to watch as filmmaking. Like, this is just a staple of filmmaking, and this is a major moment of like, how is this being done, because it's so phenomenal. I absolutely loved 28 Days Later. It feels like something from my childhood. I used to watch, like, this is a very Canadian cut, but I used to watch TVO, which had tons of BBC programs. I remember watching Miss Marple, all the Agatha Christie stuff like Poirot. I remember watching all these British crime dramas with my mom as a child on TVO, and the way they're shot, there's this like fuzzy, hazy little thing over them, and they have that in 28 Days Later because of the camera. And I just felt so nostalgic of like, oh, this is how everything I used to watch as a child used to look, and I loved it. Also, I just think like as a story, it's fantastic, and I love the visual elements of the different cuts and how the action is shown. It's just really gorgeous, and I think the performances aren't really anything special, which pains me to say because it's Cillian Murphy and Naomi Harris, who I love, but like Danny Boyle just gave me such a fascinating wave of nostalgia that I just don't really get from new stuff. And I feel like because I love Shaun of the Dead, which is another, you know, zombie British film, it was very easy for me to buy into this of like, oh, I love when there's British people and zombies. So I enjoyed it a lot. Some parts are extremely sloppy, like almost feel clumsily put together, but that's some of the charm of 28 Days Later, that it feels so low budget. It feels so minimal, and like it was a small crew, and this is someone making this on almost a home tape. And that's what I love about it. So if you've never seen 28 Days Later, it's from 2002. It's a classic. I watched it on Crave. You're going to think like, oh, is the quality bad? No, the movie literally just looks like that, and it's so much fun to watch. 4.5 stars. And of course, after 28 Days Later, I had to watch 28 Weeks Later before 28 Years Later. Where's 28 Months? Come on, Danny. Not as fun. Obviously, different director. It's the guy who did Damsel, Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, and it's kind of it feels a lot more American, is what I would say. It feels a lot more Hollywood. It's not shot in a particularly interesting way. It feels like a bunch of other Hollywood flicks, and there's not really character arcs in that movie. I know the first one doesn't really have character arcs in it, but to me, it just felt quite hollow. It's still fun, and I still think the action is really good. In fact, maybe the action's even better, and there's even a good Jeremy Renner performance, which if you saw my recent YouTube video on Mission Impossible, you know I think Jeremy Renner is actually a good actor, and he's good in this. I thought he was actually different. Also, Rose Byrne. She's one of my favorites. I love her and everything. Go watch Platonic on Apple TV. Hilarious show with her and Seth Rogen. Australian legend. It was like not great, but it has Robert Carlyle, who is the villain from The World Is Not Enough, a Bond film from my childhood, which is hilarious, and it's fun seeing him in something else. I think he's also in The Full Monty, a movie my mom really loves. Yeah, not as good as the first one. I think maybe the creative shifts and going to someone else is what lost the magic for it. It's not visually striking like the first one, or 28 Years Later for that matter. So I gave it 3.5 stars. Next week, some big things I'm going to watch. Obviously, I'm going to be very busy editing my YouTube video, but I'm going to try and finally watch La Chimera, the Josh O'Connell movie. I have it rented on Apple. Also, Mountainhead, I want to watch. Starlight, which is a Lost in Starlight, something like that, a Netflix movie that I've seen tons of people raving about. This weekend, I'm going to watch the first Jurassic Park movie, maybe even the first 3, actually, because I want to see them all before the new one, and I've only ever seen the first one. I loved it as a kid. I remember we had it on VHS, and I was so scared of the T-Rex. But also, The Bear is coming back next weekend, which I'm mind blown that it's back already. Same with Ironheart is starting next week, so I know I've been a little bare in the TV section of the show the last couple weeks, but next week it's going to be going again. Next weekend I might binge watch The Bear Season 4. We won't have an episode on The Bear Season 4 because I think I'm going to do Jurassic World Rebirth instead, but we'll talk about it. And as for now, I think that's all I have for what else I watched. And in fact, I think that's going to do it for episode 75, 28 years later. I can't believe it's come and gone. This was a movie everyone was looking forward to. If I have time, honestly, I do want to watch it again, but I'm going into such a crazy busy period because I go on vacation next month. I'm trying to do stuff. I'm recording an episode this weekend for While I'm Gone. That's going to be fun. I won't tell you guys, have I told you? I can't remember what I'm going to be doing while I'm on vacation, what the weekly episodes will be, but they will be new episodes that I think it's going to be a really fun thing. But as for now, as always, please rate and review the show 5 stars wherever you get your great podcasts like Watcher of All Things, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Acast. We are, of course, an Acast produced show. Give us 5 stars. Share with a friend. It helps the show grow. We get engagement. Drop a review right under the episode on Spotify. What did you think of 28 years later? Give me some TV shows that you're watching. I want to know what I should dive into TV-wise. If you are on the YouTube channel, please like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell so you know when the new video drops on Friday. It's going to be a lot of fun talking about the DCEU, where it went wrong, what I really liked about it, or some things I liked about it and I thought they actually did well, and then what I want from the DCU. You can email the show, watcherofallthings@gmail.com, and find me on social media. Instagram and Threads are @watcherofallthings. The TikTok is @watcher.of.all.things. I post on social media every day, tons of other videos and content and stuff like that. I did a fun Batman Begins 20th anniversary video this week. Also follow my personal Letterboxd account, KikiJ70. That's KIKIJ70. Follow me, drop a comment under one of my reviews that you found me through the show. I will follow you back. Let's build a little community. Next week, F1 the movie. The dad movies are back. Kaczynski is back. I've heard pretty positive reactions. I'm seeing it Monday night, the day this comes out, actually. I'm seeing it in IMAX tonight, but obviously you won't hear from me until next Monday. As for now, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all for all of the love. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.